Alright, I'm gonna tie a fly that a buddy and I invented in college called the dorm room Spey. And I tie this specific fly on a 51 millimeter OPST return eye steelhead shank. .210 denier ultra thread, or whatever you prefer. I prefer 210 because it works better with some of the materials that I use. I come in with my intruder wire. I prefer not to use braid on this fly because it'll hang up on some of the materials and you're constantly combing out your fly instead of fishing it. I'll usually turn it back. Get a few wraps coming back just to make sure it doesn't come unpegged. And then to start this fly, I like to do a hot spot on the back of the fly, and I use chartreuse ice dub for this. Sometimes I'll use a brighter orange or a yellow, but greens seem to give me a lot of luck lately. And then after this, you take a piece of your choice of Flashaboo. Get a long, sparse clump. This is purple and green, and there's some silver mixed in there. This is in place of like a tinsel or a dubbing underbody. And after that, this is where the dorm room Spey is a little more unique than some other flies. Take a section of chocolates, Blaine Chocolate's body tubing, normally used in like predator flies, muskie and pike flies, but in this case works for a very good shoulder that won't soak up a lot of water, and it'll still help the fly be easy to cast but also move a lot of water for you. I'll tie that in. This is where you want the 210 thread, because you kind of have to crank on this stuff so it doesn't spin on you. And I'll go right behind, half hitch it. And you also want to make sure that you burn the tips on this, because it will unravel on you. Then I'll come in with a little bit of glue just on that thread after it dries to make sure it's not going to spin out. You're going to want to push this material straight back over your shank where you already tied, and then straight back. You kind of want to get it just in front or right on top of where you tied in the rear section of that body tubing. Clamp right back down on it. And I like to do a lot of wraps because I've had it slip out. And then I just do a half hitch. So I'm going to put glue over it anyway. Trim that off. A little bit of glue. And you can push that right back. Gives you a nice looking shoulder there. And then start your thread back right in front. Then I'll start with a piece of chromatic brush, and this specific color I think is bait fish, and this is another good material. It doesn't soak up a lot of water, still manages your castability, and it's going to really help prop up the wing. Get that started back as close to that body tubing as possible, so it's really going to prop everything up. And I only like to do about 3, maybe 4 wraps on the first go here. Make sure you're palmering everything back as you go. One more wrap should be perfect. Okay. Then if it looks all kind of a mess, that's alright because we're going to brush her out anyway. And really make sure to separate the fibers that are tied in and the ones that are still on the wire there. Give that one good wrap underneath. And trim her off. Make sure you're using some kind of scissors you don't care about, or some wire cutters for that part, because you will dull out your scissors. And you can brush that out. And then we're going to start our wing. I like to use polar flash. This is just pearl polar flash. And I cut the side of the packaging for this specific fly so I can remember how long I wanted it. And it comes out to be somewhere around 4 inches. I don't use too much, real sparse clump, and I cut it a little bit long so I can taper these fibers so everything's not super straight. I'll spin my bobbin so everything comes back behind. Okay, then I'm going to make sure these fibers are going to end right about where I want my hook to be. I'm going to do about 2 or 3 real loose wraps. I kind of flare everything out on the top of the fly. And then I'll really crank it down. Sometimes I'll fold these fibers back, but not on this particular fly. Trap all those. You can add a little bit of glue here if you like. Now I'm going to come in front with a piece of chromatic brush in this specific color. Can't remember. I think it's bronze, copper bronze. Trim out the wire just slightly so you don't end up with a ton of excess wire on your shank. And same deal, I like to do 3, maybe 4 wraps depending on the specific brush. Some are more full than others. Usually just go until I think it looks good. One more. And again, we're going to brush everything out, so I pull them right as I'm going around, but I don't worry too much about the stragglers or the couple of fibers that look to be clumped up. Do a couple good wraps behind it, a couple in front, give it a trim. Make sure to push that wire back so it's not in the way of everything. And come back where you started. Give everything a good brush. And then to end the fly, I like to do a couple of rubber legs, about 2 on each side, or 1 folded over depending on how long you want them to be. I'm going to do 1 folded here. I like to stagger these two so they're not perfectly lined up. And then take a couple of the same color I had on the underbody, just very sparse. The Flashaboo. Throw those on top. Same deal, a couple of loose wraps. Push those around and crank them down. Give it a trim. Even out this head a little bit so everything flows a little easier. Then I come in with a piece of barred saddle hackle. I'm going to tie this in rear first. Make sure all those fibers are pointing back. Palmer these, same as the brush as you go. Make sure everything will lay back nice. And I'll do about 2 wraps of that. Return my thread. pushed back. Couple of good finishing wraps there. And same thing, I'll just brush those out. Make sure they're nice and even. Half edge or whip finish or just glue, whatever you prefer. Throw a little bit of glue on there, and then there you have it. That's a finished dorm room spey, ready to be fished. This fly really looks great in the water. Swims well because it's fairly hollow in that underbody, the body tubing, as you can see, really flares out the materials. And it can be tied in a bunch of different color schemes. You can tie it with composite loops if you want. The brushes just make it a little bit easier to pump a bunch out fairly quickly. So yeah, that's the dorm room spey. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks.